Hi there. Welcome to my session, Forging a New Path to Equitable Justice. We're going to be talking about platform engineering in state government today. We've not met before. Hello, I'm Chris Wahl. I work at Slalom. Been there for about 3.5 years. I'm down in Austin, Texas. Been in tech for 25, and I spent a lot of time talking about platform engineering, cloud, DevOps, that sort of jazz, and have had the absolute honor get to do work for the public sector, specifically for state government. I'm pretty much only available on my website, so feel free to jump over there. I blog every once in a while. Let's get started. First, though, I wanted to bring some slalom perspective to this because I love this quote talking about how platform engineering's role is really about making the ability to take ideas, get them out of our head, get them into products, and make that process awesome. And I think that's where I have a root connection to platform engineering. Just felt like something to really seed into here before we get too deep. So here's the agenda. I'm going to talk about the most amazing team I've ever worked with, give you some context. Then we're going to dive into what contracts and documents did we have to build first to solve our problem? How did we work together? And what did we build? And by the end of that, hopefully you agree that this is an amazing team and that we've done some fantastic work for citizens for this particular entity. So first, the story. Imagine this. You've been working this state government organization for a long time, years, decades, and you've got this like 20-year ball of legacy applications that you're really doing a lot of heroics to keep it alive, right? It's taking a lot of people doing things to keep that going. Wouldn't you want to get out of that realm at some point? Yes. The answer is yes. And so that's what this organization wanted to do. They wanted to get out of the business of managing a pile of other people's applications and stitching it together and run their own and do it in a modern way and run it securely and automate the ability to deliver it. Worthy goals. And I think absolutely ones we should all pursue. And that's really what this was all about, was transforming not only the tech stack, but the people so that they could build and iterate and maintain and operate this platform. There we go. Kind of a greenfield kind of feel to it. We have some legacy stuff, but we have some bright folks that are willing to change. And I got to say, that's a rare thing. So what were our challenges? What was against us? Really just one, we had to use AWS GovCloud, and that's a little bit of a different beast than your standard commercial cloud, but not too bad. The real hard part, I think, was around the amount of data that you're going to find in public sector. It's a lot. It's massive because data never really goes anywhere. It has to live forever. And a lot of it's paper. So lots of data and security, right? Everybody's trying to go after hospitals and government entities and things like that, try to break into them because they have all of our data. So maintaining security was a big one. We wanted to make sure that we were working with security and that they were building with us. So those are the big challenges and constraints, but ideally we were trying to say, let's build modern apps in the cloud, regardless of who we are. Yeah, thumbs up, I like it. If you want to know more about GovCloud, I do have a podcast recording on Day 2 Cloud. Ned and Ethan are great folks, and we go into GovCloud for, I think, 45 minutes or so. So if you'd like to know more about that, check it out. Let's talk about foundational contracts. This is kind of the, hey, this is a new sort of thing for us. We've not built modern cloud applications before. So let's first look at what's going to be required to build this system. And I've thrown up this quote from Gall's Law here because I think it's very true. I think in order to end up with a relatively complex system that achieves the feature parity that you want for what you have on-prem and make that into cloud, it's going to take a while. And you're going to have to start simple and build upon that because it's a learning journey, right? You're not only learning yourself, but you're learning with other people. Architecture decision records, super critical. I swear by them. And it's something that we did, and they were very open to it. We tried it out. And we first started with tool selection. It's really just saying we're going to make a decision to build some sort of architecture, whether it be process architecture, technical architecture, whatever. And we're going to document that. And we're going to make sure that everybody agrees at least what the problem is and why it matters. Because from there, we can get requirements. We can go, okay, well, you want this thing. Well, what are the requirements? What kind of security requirements? Performance, the standard list. because then we can go experiment. And when you have a group of folks who've not had to build this sort of thing before, and I don't think a lot of us build landing zones and platforms on the regular, we tend to build it once or twice and then operate it. It allows you to take all of those components, make them smaller, make them bite-sized, make them recognizable, and then agree on the problem and start figuring out the solution. I do talk more about ADRs in another podcast, cables to clouds. So we get pretty deep on platform engineering, and there's definitely a lot of questions on ADRs. With that said, here's examples. Here's the types of 8 things that we were looking at for ADRs. And I have a quote here. If it's not written down, it doesn't truly exist. That is true. Because if it's just in your head, I can't Google search brain yet. That doesn't exist. So these are the kind of chunks that we were thinking through. Very simple stuff, right? DNS, IPAM, VPC definition, and you think pipeline there. Yeah, how do we want our CI to act? What's our release process? How do we tag? All of these things, but it just made it so that we had something to point at each time that we needed to look at anything. So for example, what's our repo hierarchy? Where do we put projects? What kind of metadata is associated with a project? This is GitLab, so we use the project nomenclature. That sort of jazz, right? We need to understand how we're structuring things and what those inputs and outputs look like. Another example, we use parameter storage at this particular engagement here. And that was a contract between, hey, developers, you want to control your application, but you don't want to have to write all this code. And we want it to be consistent across all your environments. Here's an ADR where we're going to build that contract, right? And then how we input it, how they consume it. So documentation, very critical. It gets everyone on the same page and helps them at least define the problem and agree on it. Communication. Let's talk communication, because that's always going to be critical. But in this case, you've got to think a lot of, I'm going to say legacy, running more unique applications that focus on a specific thing that is a little bit harder to find the skill set on and makes money, or in this case, serves citizens. When you have a lot of those components, you just have silos by the nature of the beast. It's just how it runs. So you're going to have compute people and database people and network people and people trying to develop stuff and security. So I think communication needs more time in the sun than it deserves. That's why I put it 2 on the list here, because this is what it should feel like to operate as a team building software. This is what it should feel like to see them successful because they're on your platform. Feels like this. That's the vibe. So things that we did to help accelerate the dancing 80s theme music going on there was, one, we made a weekly intake process. We actually had a meeting for, I think, an hour every Monday that all the architects and domains and other people were welcome to. And one, we would tell them what we were doing. Hey, here's the big rocks that we're pushing on. But 2, we would accept, like, hey, what do you need? And we would make that to a point where you didn't really need to know the specifics. You can come to the meeting, translate it. When we designed stuff, we did it in the open and we invited people to join us. When we did our spikes, where we're researching the solution for something, like, hey, we need a Cognito user pool. Okay, how do we want to configure MFA? Let's go figure that out, right? For that period of time, bring those folks with you. And we found that just having that level of interlock, even just sometimes joining other teams' stand-ups for a week or a sprint or a few days, had huge dividends paid. The other thing I'll point out was that we had this communication channel called the hotline. And it wasn't, a help desk thing where, like, hey, we're just on call to fix your stuff. But it was more, is something going wrong? Is something looking weird? Let's make it very, very, very easy and safe and simple for you to say something. That's it. Because when you're building a platform, there's a lot of corners you can't see around yet. You're building observability as you go, and you're learning through these processes, and your applications are being developed. So just having a nexus where it's like okay to ask a dumb question was great, right? And it ended up evolving into this sort of hub of what's going on. A lot of people joined in. Last thing I want to go through, the architecture itself, right? What were we building, and how do we build it? The building blocks, I think, are a good place to start. What do we think of when we think of the work we're going to do as a platform team? And this is where I wanted to ground the team into the way of thinking that results in this case, 2 people, 3 people being able to keep an entire platform afloat and continue to work on it. Like how do we get super automated here? How do we build things the right way? One is quality. I will go more into that. 2 and 3 are vending machines and dynamic configuration. And I'll let you pause or read through the stuff here, but I'm going to go deeper into it. First is quality. And I'll say, like, this is where I see the struggle because we typically have a lot of sort of infrastructure folks trying to build a platform and they're kind of shooting from the hip in a lot of cases. Or, why do I have to fill out the pull request template? That feels like extra work. There's just sort of this resistance to completing tasks at a certain level of quality. And I will say that this is where that plus if you find teams that just need more development in their growth around cloud native application operations and platform engineering, pair them with your senior folks. And from the moment we're thinking of a story to the moment we've actually merged to main and we're doing a smoke test, have that person two in the box with your platform engineer. So think, how do I pair quality and make sure I've got someone thinking about it the whole way through? Last thing I want to do is whiteboard with you. So I'm going to go through some whiteboard slides here and talk about the multiple layers that we built for the architecture itself. And I'm going to break this down to a degree where hopefully we understand the contracts we're trying to build here. So when we think platform, what we think of is multiple layers here. And the lowest layer, just in form of like foundational layer that we built was this infrastructure layer. So we took Terraform and GitLab and kind of broke down this repo into our modules that were lightweight, super small, very consumable, meant to be as global as possible. And then we fed those into two types of contracts. The platform contract is something that represents all the infrastructure required for any account that we vend. Audit trailing, networking, hooking into the transit gateway, building buckets for Terraform. Everybody gets that. The service contracts represent the things that we wanted to obviate from a developer's concern, right? You need a database? Great. What kind of database do you need? Let's make sure you've got something that represents that database. It's performant, it's backed up, it's maintained. You don't have to worry about it. Here's your roles, consume it, done. We put those in the service contracts. And our account vending process was really just a combination of looking at the platform contract and the service contract for any particular account. So this is our substrate layer that we built. Again, pretty much just AWS, GovCloud, GitLab, and Terraform. Nothing super fancy because we didn't need it. You don't need to go fancy. You can do it with basic tools. So that was our platform and service contract kind of layer. From there, we use GitLab CI, and every time we would bootstrap a pipeline, we would figure out what inputs we needed for a contract. We would gather those from our CI variables, things like, hey, what service are you? What domain are you? Things that we just maintained on behalf of the development team so they didn't have to deal with it. Plus parameter storage, secrets, that kind of jazz. Puts it in there, and then we vend the platform. We vend the account with all the environments, so 4 accounts per different environment or more, and it comes out. And then they would consume it. They could just go in and consume anything they need in the account. They can build the application on that service itself, so like their lambdas and SNS topics and SQS and all that stuff that they need from the application layer just gets built on top. We have that maintenance contract between the two of us. And so it just means that we can do continuous delivery across the platform. We can maintain it and make it so that it's not someone's infrastructure problem. We've got that. You have the contract. You want the thing. We make the thing. But it also means that everybody can trust it. It's the same across the universe. Everybody's using the same platform contract. Every single service environment's using the same service contract. So you don't really have to worry about drift or deviation. In summary, it's a journey, right? You're taking this kind of wild forest that I've envisioned here and turning it into this digital sort of hybrid between the two. It's a journey. But I think if you start with that simplicity and you form contracts, it will take you to where you need to go. And I hope you can see like the amount of change that these folks embraced and then executed to build this platform that is now fully live in production, serving citizens. Has just been fantastic. I'll leave you with a few resources. I've blogged about a number of my experiences here. You can check out these various blog posts that talk specifically about platform engineering on this project. I also have more resources on the website if you'd like to go into, kind of the nerdy stuff. Other than that, I hope this has been a fantastic 15 minutes for you. Just want to say thank you and happy platforming.